Hello, welcome back. This is Jeff Byers, and this is Module 5, and this is Annie 150, and we are working on Part 2 of our series on UV mapping. We're going to be UV mapping the low poly Dagger, so let's go ahead and open that one up. Let's just focus on that. It does need to be low poly, okay, that's really important, and we do not want to have triangles, okay, so if you've watched my videos, you know that that's probably not a good idea. We will triangulate this when we're done before we export it out, but right now we don't want to have it triangulated. Okay. So, and we always want to duplicate this too. When we show off our models, we don't want the unnecessary triangulation to show our model off. We want to have it clean. We can show edge loops a lot better, and it looks a lot more uniform. So that's why we want to make sure that we just have regular normal polygons the way we intended it to be when we were modeling it. The reason why I triangulate the object before is because we sent it out to Substance Painter, and usually objects that have been extruded have some kind of corruption on them, and it causes some errors in the map mapping. That's why if you forget to triangulate it, you may get errors in your maps, or they won't even bake at all. So you want to make sure that you save it out and make sure it's triangulated first before you save it out. Okay. Alright, so the idea now is to go ahead and lay out the UVs. We're going to use UDIM tiles like we did before, and that will help us separate, and we want to separate them by materials, so each one of these will have its own UV space. Okay, so if you look, and you need to figure that out, and you need to kind of strategize what UDIM tiles and you know which one will be share the same material. These guys won't share any materials. They're going to be all different materials. Okay, so that means the pommel is going to be different, my handle is going to be different, you know, my guard is going to be different, and my blade is going to be a different material. So we're going to have 4. Now the battle axe, let's turn that off a minute and do the low poly battle axe here. The blade is going to have several different pieces. So you've got the darker blade here, and then you've got the shiny, you know, honed blade on the outside. So you got the darker blade here. You have to look at the let's see, I don't have the reference with me, but the reference shows it to be a lot darker, and then the blade is sharpened to a razor edge. And then we've got the wood, and then we've got the straps. So these are all going to be different, and it's going to be difficult to get those figured out, but you know, we're going to lay out the UVs for all that, and of course the battle axe is always going to be the hardest one to lay out the UVs, but it'll be fun and time consuming, but it'll be fun. So let's go ahead and start with the dagger, and let's go ahead and go in here, and let's just start with the top piece. And what we're going to do is we're going to go into UVs, and we're going to go to automatic map, click on the automatic map, go to edit, reset settings, and project. Okay. Alright, so we're going to go into UV editor. Okay, so this takes us in that UV editor box, and you can see it lays it out pretty good, and it's not squished or anything. At least I don't think so. Let's take a look at this and see what it looks like here. Yeah, that looks about right. Okay, if yours doesn't look like mine, you may want to redo it. Again, what you do is you select the object and you go to UV, automatic map. I always start with automatic, and then I sew things together. And then we're going to go in here and do edit, reset settings. Everything looks pretty good. Okay, and then project. Okay, it did the same exact thing. Right, so let me show you some things in here. Again, if we click on the texture, the checker map board, it tells us whether a texture is squashed or stretched. Okay? So you can see that we've got some stretching here, you know, and you want to look for that, those areas there like that. Okay? Alright, so that shows you whether your texture is squashed or stretched. You can hit the F key, kind of focus around there, move around. There we go. And then if you click off that, you can right click over and go to UV shell, and you can click on these shells one at a time. Let's go back to UV shell. Looks like there we go. Got stuck a little bit. I'm using Camtasia, so it's really slow. Alright, so when you right click over to go to UV shell, and you can move these around. So what we're going to do is we're going to move this guy around because we don't want, we're going to unpack this. That's what this is called, unpacking. Move that one over here like that. And we're moving these. Alright, so these all look about the same. Let's move that over here. And move these down here. And we're just kind of moving, we're just unpacking it so we can see a little bit better of these. Okay, so the idea here is, let's go ahead and scale this or size this down just a little bit. There we go. Okay, so if I click on these, you can see where they're at. Okay, we got some stretching here. That's a seam. What's called a seam, and we don't want those. Okay, if you have a seam, you can hide it in a little crease like this. Okay, usually the rule of thumb is anything that's a 90-degree angle, you can have a seam there. Okay, alright, so what we're going to do here is we're going to go to edge mode. Okay, and if I go to the top here, we know that's the top. You can see when I'm moving around, you can see where it is. If I click on this, that's the seam, and I want to sew that together so I don't have a seam there. I want to sew that. So how do I do that? Okay, well, I have to know which direction it's going, and I think it's the wrong direction. So how do I figure that out? Well, let's go into UVs. Okay, so there's a difference between a shell. A UV shell is kind of like a polygon, right? And a UV, okay, these UVs can be moved around. Okay, now it's not like a regular polygon. This is UV space here. Okay, this is the polygon. This is UVs. Okay, it's a little different because I'm moving this around, but that's not moving. Okay, it has nothing to do with the physical aspect of things with this. This is a 2D area here. Okay, this is 3D. Okay, so if I move that, it's actually moving that texture space around. Okay, alright, so how do I know which direction it's going? So I'm going to highlight all the top, and this is, okay, that's telling me that that's the top. Now if I highlight these guys, that's telling me that's the bottom. It's facing the wrong way. Okay, so what do I got to do? I got to go in there and select the shell, and I can do it manually. I can hit the E key and click on this outside ring and rotate it, right, like that, and then rotate it again like that, so a full 180 degrees. Okay, right, we had it like that. Now we're kind of going like that and rotate it around. Now I'm not getting it exact, so how do I get it exact? Well, you can do a couple things here. Let me go back and let's get back to where we were to make sure, yeah, it's wrong. Alright, so I'm going to go in here to UV shell, click on it, and what I'm going to do is go into transform. Okay, and I'm going to scroll down under transform a little bit with my middle mouse button, and you can see we got rotate right here. So I can go ahead and just rotate it this way, just once and twice, and basically I rotated 180 degrees. Did I do it right? Well, let's right click over this, go to edge, and click on that edge, and now they're matching up. See? Look at that. So that means when I say matching up, that means if I click on this, hit the W key, I can move it around. Okay. Now, if for some reason UV editor gets stuck a little bit, let's see if you're going from rotate to move, and it doesn't, and you're hitting the W key and it doesn't do anything, click off of it and click back on, and then hit the W key. Okay, click off, click back on, you can hit the E key. If you're having a hard time cycling between W, E, and R, which is move, rotate, and scale. So with that said, we're going to move it, W, and just going to move it up here. I'm going to move those kind of out of the way like this, and move those together. You don't necessarily have to do that, but I wanted to show you something. So I'm going to click on the edge. Okay. When I click on this edge, it matches up with that edge. You can see there they are. But they're together here on the physical model, but they're separated on the UV side of things. Okay, so we need to sew them together. Right, so I need to go up to cut and sew and go to move and sew. So it's going to move them and sew them. So if I go in here again and go Control Z, and I want to go back to my shell and move that around. Okay, I can move it down here again. Now watch what happens when I right click and go to edge. I go to move and sew. Okay, move and sew. There you go. So you don't necessarily have to have them side by side for it to work. Okay, which is kind of nice. So I'm going to click on this guy right here. And let's find out where that is. Oh, that's right in that crease. That's good. That's a good place to have it. But we don't want to have a crease there, right? Okay, so that one matches up with this. So I don't really have to look at it too much to know that's facing the wrong way. So I'm going to go in here and rotate it this way. And let's see if we go back to edge here. We click on that edge. We can go ahead and sew those two together. Okay. So I'm going to go to cut and sew, move and sew. There we go. So now these shells are doing well. Okay. Alright, so let's go ahead and rotate this so it's rotating the right way like the other one. There we go. So they kind of match up. So what's next on this? Well, where does this go? So you just kind of have to ask yourself, well, there's another seam there. And it's this one right here. Now, they're on the same sides, meaning this one and this one, so they match up. If you're not sure, go to UV and then select the top, and you can see that they're on this side. Okay. If I select the UVs over here, they're also on that side, so they are facing the right direction. Okay. So if I go into edge mode and click on that edge, you can see that it selects those two. Right. So I'll click on it, and I'm going to go to cut and sew and move and sew. Boom. So now that one we have, you can see that the seams are gone. You see the really dark white or the thick white line? That's the seam and that's the seam, and these are perfectly normal to have seams there. That's good. Now let's take a look at this one. That's not very good. Okay, but we do have to have a seam at the very bottom. We have to be able to open it up. Just imagine that if I had it closed, it would be a problem because it would stretch like crazy right down here. So you've got to have a cut somewhere. You have to have a seam. So natural seams go into these little crevices. That's fine, but you don't want them out in the open like this. Okay. All right. All right. So let's go in here and fix this one. Again, I can just go into UV shell and rotate that. Here we go. Right click over and go to edge and click on the edge and go ahead and go to move and sew. There we go. Doing good so far. That instantly goes away. Alright. Next thing is we got this big piece down here and we want to go right to there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find out where this is. Okay. And I don't think it's got right there. It is. Look at that. So it's that piece right there. So I'm going to go to UV shell, go down here, and let's go into edge. There we go, and move and sew. There we go. Move and sew. Alright. So I want to know where this edge is, because we're going to cut that edge at that nice spot right there. There's that edge there. So I'm going to select that edge. I'm going to go to cut and sew. I'm going to go ahead and cut it. Okay. When I cut it, it broke those two pieces up together. I mean, they broke them separately. So I'm going to go into UV shell, and you can see I can move that up. Now I've got my break, my seam right here. So I told it where to cut that seam, which is nice. Okay. Now we're going to go up the other side. Okay, so I'm going to take this, move it down. And don't worry if you're a little confused about what's happening here. This is just part of it. You can just follow along, and you'll feel more comfortable as we go along here. This is a lot. You know, this is not a food can. The food can was really easy. This one's you're going to have to use a little more techniques, and I'm going to show you more about this. And this is what you want, though, too. You want to get proficient at UV mapping. So I'm going to go into cut and sew and move and sew. And so now this one here. Let's see. I am going to rotate that, but we lost our cut there. Let's see if it'll cut and sew it at these different angles here, just for fun. Yeah, it did. That's pretty cool. Alright, so we need to cut again, and there it is. Let's make that cut. So, cut, and then we're right-click over it, shell, move it, shell, move it. So we've got 3 places, okay, for the seams. One is down at the very bottom, which you would never see, and then each one in the corner, which is not going to be a problem. Okay, so that'll be good. So we need to have them facing the right direction. So let's go ahead and rotate those. Okay. And that's really important that your UVs are facing the right direction. And let's just say we're focused on that direction here. Alright, so now once you lay out UVs, now you're going to pack them back in. Alright, so this piece is completely done, but the thing is, even if I do click on, let's see here, to checkerboard, you'll notice that our seams are nice, but we still have stretch right in through here. Okay, how do you see that? If you don't have the checkerboard, that's the best way to see it, of course. If you don't see perfectly square squares, then you've got some problems. So there's some stretching there. So how do you get rid of that stretching, and how else would you see it if we didn't have that checkerboard? Well, Maya also has the ability to go in here and show you in color what's stretching and what's compressed. So the blue is compression, and the red is stretching. Okay, so the blue is kind of pushing together, and the red is pulling apart. And the darker the red, the more stretching you get, and the bluer, the more compression you have. So let's go to UVs, and let's see if that works. So I'm going to click on those. I'm going to push. There we go. Okay. So it's turning really blue. Okay. Alright, so what we're going to do here is we need to get rid of that compression. Okay, so I'm going to go into UV shell. I'm going to show you something new, because you're new to this. You know, you're new to the compression, because with the food can there really wasn't anything that was distorted, and now you need to know how to fix things that are distorted. So I'm going to right click and go to UV shell, and then select everything, and then I'm going to go down, let's see if I got this right, yeah, down to looks like unfold. Okay, we're going to scroll down to and click on the arrow that goes to unfold, and I'm going to click on unfold. There we go, look at that, and those are perfectly aligned. Now let's double check it. Click on the checkerboard, and there you go, look at that. So if you look at the sides here, that's what we've UV mapped, and they're perfectly aligned. Awesome. Okay, awesome job. Alright, so with that done, let's go ahead and turn off the checkerboard. So the front, or the top, or excuse me, the sides of this are completed. Okay, so those are good. So let's go to UV shell. Let's take off this, turn that off. And let's go in here and let's align that. So I'm going to highlight these. Again, we need to be in UV shell. And what we're going to do is we're going to scroll down and we're going to go to Align and Snap. Okay. Arrange and Layout. Click on that one. And that's what I really want. So the Arrange and Layout. So click on Orient Shells. And you notice before I do a Control Z, they were kind of cockeyed. And that happens when you add a Unfold. Okay, when you click on Unfold, it kind of moves them a little bit. And so what you want to do is you want to go down to Arrange and Layout and click on Orient Shells. There we go. So now they're perfectly matched. Okay, perfect. That looks good. So those are new tools that you have. Okay. Alright, so let's go in here. And we could also continue, if we didn't want any seam at all the way around, I mean, that's more than possible, okay, to do that. You can continue moving and sewing UVs, right? We can move and sew those two together. Okay, I choose to have a break in those areas there because I can make these shells bigger. We talked about the UV shell space. Let's go ahead and take this and move it over. Okay. Now, if I were to go ahead and move and sew those, it would make a really long piece, and I wouldn't be able to fit it within here without scaling it. Well, if I have a natural break in the geometry anyway, why not use that, and that gives me more texture space. Okay? And basically, let's just say that I did move and sew and made this all one big piece, right? And I can show you what I mean. So when I got those, you can see that that doesn't really fit in there, so I would have to make this smaller to fit within that UV space, 0 to 1. Okay? Before, I had these. Okay? I had these, and I used the natural cut, or the natural geometry, where it's actually going into a little crevice there, that I can hide that, and it gives me that. So this shell right here, I can actually make bigger and use the texture space better. Okay, than if I were to actually put it all together as one. Now there are going to be times you have to kind of make that judgment call as an artist when you're UV mapping, that you got to make that call. And what that call is going to be: do you have fewer seams, or do you have a couple seams that you can live with, and they're in the, in this cavity area anyway, and you never see it? Can you do that? Sure. I'd never be able to get the texture size I had putting these together like this, side by side, end to end, right? But with this, it works out pretty well. Right, so the next thing we're going to do is, since they're all going to be in the same texture space, it's probably a good idea for me to just add those and make them smaller, just for now. So I want them all to fit in there. So we're going to go in here and move that around. Okay, so since this part is all the same, basically, you can see that if I hit the F key, there we go, they're about basically the same. So we've got a piece down here. That's not good. That's really pretty horrible, and I can't believe that Maya did that. So what we're going to do is we're going to move and sew those. Okay, so I'm going to go to Edge, click on that edge, and that's unusual. Where is it connected to? Interesting. That's very interesting. Wait a minute, am I in the right one? There we go. No? Wow. I'm going to move and sew, see where it goes. It went over here. Why would it do that? That's very oh, something going on here. Interesting. So, got some issues with this. That is really strange. We got some. What would happen if I deleted those? I don't know if we can or not. But you can't ignore it. There's a definite issue right here I have with my model. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the next video, and we'll continue UV mapping. And what you want to do is make sure you save your work. Okay. So save scene as, and save to the next increment. And we'll take a look at this geometry error, and I'll talk about it and see how we can fix it. Alright, I'll see you in the next video, part 3.